purposefully chosen community, and welcome to Foster My Stories, the achievement-focused podcast for foster care, adoption, orphan, inclusive of underserved communities. I'm your host, Shalina Michelle Tate, and on today's cast episode, I am interviewing Kiwan Fitch Webster, a leader that's here local to the Midlands. Hello, Miss Kiwan. How are you doing?
I am well. How are you, Shalina?
Good. I'm super excited because I'm on location here with Miss Kiwan, leading from her backstory to what she does today. I would love for her to tell you, the listeners, about her background.
I do appreciate you coming and taking the time. I love what you're doing, and congratulations to you. I know that impacting lives has been a journey for you and something you've always wanted to do. So pretty dope what you do. What's exciting about what you're doing is you get to impact lives in your own special way. We get to be a part.
Great. This is a needed platform. And Ms. Kiwan and I go back. She, to me, is a mentor before you even got to the leadership position that you are in today. Could you tell listeners a little bit about your childhood?
Awesome, girl. You want to go back. Well, I've always found myself in leadership. I can remember probably about 6. I had a neighbor who, in my mind, used to tease me. We used to play under her window, in her living room window. We lived in this 6-family tenement, straight through apartments, and we're neighbors. And on her side of the building is where we could play in the yard in the front. But it was where I played school. I would hear her talking about me at church. As a kid, I didn't know what that was or what that meant. It really bothered me because I thought she was teasing me because of the way that I interacted with the other kids. It honestly came back to my memory just a couple years ago. And I remember how she used to say, well, she used to talk to the kids and she'll tell them, and she would do that, and it just burned me up. But she was mimicking my leadership. The memory now, as an adult, I can remember this happened kind of at our community or whatever, but I recall very distinctly being at church and she would be telling other people that I was leading and the kids would listen to me and they did what I told them to do. We moved from there. I was 7. It's really just, it boggles my mind, but I've been doing this a long time. I went to private school from kindergarten to 12th grade. I've always had opportunities to speak in leadership, small community. So there was always, an opportunity to do something. It wasn't big enough for you to kind of fade into the background and not be noticed. As I got older, serving and doing things for other people just became a huge part of our lives.
When you left, because you said you left at 7, people kind of gravitate towards you, or did they ask you to be a part of stuff?
Until recently, I never paid attention to that. I can recall now being asked about 12, 13 years old to be an assistant to a Sunday school teacher. That was my first leadership position in the church. I was probably more like about 13 that happened. And so when someone was able to identify that I could handle it, I would be someone that the younger children would appreciate and respect. That was huge for me. Mrs. Darsaw was that person. And when she and I reconnected over the years, and when I told her how much it meant to me then and even so much now, that she was the first person to actually elevate me in true leadership. And I don't think that she knew what that meant for me. And it's so funny because now she's actually joining my community as an adult, coming to coach in my program. So everything just kind of comes full circle. I just think about one day she's going to be on the show saying, I always knew that girl.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. I can recall really your taste of a mentor dynamic to hear, because a lot of times youth, they don't really have the best influences or really any adults that's positive in their surroundings.
Absolutely.
To push them. So to hear that Miss Darsaw was kind of like there to do that, I commend her. That's needed more now.
Absolutely.
Because now we're going through so many changes in life, and it's like the youth need real leadership. They need real mentorship. They don't need to hear, what they can't be, and they don't need to hear 15 million times, oh, you need to pull up your pants. Well, tell me why you pull up my pants. Mm-hmm. Or tell me why, and how to be a young lady.
Mm-hmm.
So they need real examples. They need real experiences. Did you graduate from school and then you started to have a feeling like, man, I think I want to do something in the community? Or was there something you saw like in your surroundings that kind of gave you like a nudge, like, you know what, I want to kind of make a change in certain areas?
Not at all. I went through high school pretty much in a bubble. It was not as connected as I could have been. In the sophomore year of my high school years, father diagnosed the terminal illness and actually died right before graduation. From there on, high school was a real blur to me. I remember being called into the guidance counselor's office because my father went off that, I was not more interested in looking into colleges and really doing the whole college thing in my senior year because, in my mind, I was just kind of waiting for him to die. It was just so apparent that this is what was going to happen. And he literally died 25 days before graduation. I left high school and I went to cosmetology in North Carolina, not because, I just wanted to do hair so bad, but I needed to do something. Yeah. My mom said, it just wasn't the time to fight me about what I really should be doing. Kind of let me find my path and find my way. And then I found myself at 19 pregnant. When I had Brandon at 20, it was just one of those things where, now I need to figure out what I really want to do with my life. I enjoyed doing hair, but was not a career that I knew that God called for me. So I did hair and worked my way through college. That, allowed me to have the flexibility and the freedom to kind of do what I needed to do for my classes, but also to be there for my young son. And I remember very, very vividly sitting at DS, well, we call it just welfare in Jersey. We were sitting at welfare trying to get assistance for childcare. And they told me that I would not be able to get a voucher because I was only going to school part-time, not full-time. And Shalina, it was just one of those things where, that bubble moment happens again where I don't remember sitting there in any emotion. I wasn't angry. I don't remember being emotional and crying. I don't remember being angry or volatile, like, well, y'all gonna figure this out. I really just remember sitting there like, okay, and and finally someone kind of came up, probably the third or fourth person, to say, now I think that she can do a CWEP. And so she gave me some form. I went and got the forms filled out. And I remember going home and I was doing hair out of the house at the time, having a conversation with one of my clients who had just taken a position at the Child Welfare Agency. In Jersey, it's called DYFS, Division of Youth and Family Services. So she was taking a position there and her part-time job might be an opening. So she said, well, go talk to Miss Michelle Peavy. I said, okay. Next day, I go trotting down there. I go talk to Michelle Peavy, who happens to be the older sister of someone I had gone to elementary school with who I did not know because she was so much older than us. Long story short, she filled out the form. I took it back. The form was actually for CWEP, which stands for Community Work Experience. In order to make up my time, because I was in school part-time, 9 credits instead of 12, instead of full-time, I became a direct care worker at a group home for kids 6 to 12 years old. So my very first experience in my career that started into social services was by happenstance. When I say I just kind of tumbled into it, because again, I didn't know when Cynthia told me to go talk to Michelle, I didn't know what the program was. I didn't know. She said she could help me. So I just went with no understanding of the program or anything of the sort. And when I got there in this nice house, I'll never forget it, 440 Hoboken Avenue in Jersey City. It was Lutheran Social Ministries. Lutheran Social Ministries started me off in my career. And I was like a as needed, care aide that went to where, just doing my hours. And then I became a paid staff. And I worked mostly like a 4 to 12 or 3 to 11 or something like that, because that's usually what's needed. And working in that group home sparked so much in me, and it started my entire career. And that 3-year-old little boy, tell nobody this year, he's 29. So Cynthia's getting ready to retire from DYFS, and we always do our anniversary together because when she started there is when I started my career in foster care in some kind of way.
Beaming over here, she's beaming and gushing because
you didn't know that.
Yes, I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. And also, like my previous guest, Shayna Aspie, transparent about life, and appreciate her for that because that's needed as well. Here on Foster My Stories, you hear so much of achievement focus. But as I said before, here on Foster My Stories, a lot of times before we often go into the achievement portion of Foster My Stories, it's great to hear how the guests have had real testimonies and real situations that's happened, real life that has brought them to and through the stages that was necessary to get them to where they are. I just loved wasn't a phase to her. It didn't bend her out of shape. It didn't get her worked up. Mm-hmm. She just was like, okay, what's next? Take us from there in the group home. And like you said, you saw so much.
Group home experience, not only did it just, stir up something in me, but it was the beginning. Yeah. I took that experience and I parlayed it really well. That semester, it might have just been my community work, but then I also was able to get 3 credits as a co-op. I was also able to use it for my internship. I was also able to use it, and I was 2 years from graduation at that point. I was also able to use it as the basis for several different types of papers. And also, it changed my major. I was going to just do business, and it changed to where my major became sociology. So as I shifted in what I found myself doing in the community, in personal life, my academic life changed. It gave my college experience purpose because there was way more of a connection between what I needed to learn and what I was learning to what I was actually doing. When you're in schools, and a lot of kids who go into school right from high school and what have you, unless you've been on a particular track in terms of medicine or other sciences or something like that, there's not a real connection between college and what I'm doing here and what I want to be out in the world. That doesn't happen until later. And it happened for me just because I had that experience, which was truly by happenstance. That's how God works. Why it is a journey, because sometimes you just have to be obedient and go along with stuff even though you don't really understand, and then you get a better understanding of where it's supposed to be and what's supposed to be happening. When I left in social ministries, I took a position, and that was actually a summer paid internship with Covenant House. Covenant House is a huge organization in this country. They mostly work with runaway youth. Midwest, Jersey, New York. If you've ever been to New York, by the Lincoln Tunnel, there's this huge white building with, I think there was a dove on the building because it's supposed to be like a beacon of hope. And I started working there, and honestly, I don't recall putting in an application. I got a call from Covenant House about their 9 line. 1-800-999-9999. I believe it's still in existence. And I worked their crisis hotline. I went from direct care for foster children in the group home to runaway youth crisis hotline. And that was a very rich experience. Second time I was working in Manhattan, so I got to go from Jersey and take the train over to the city. When I was doing my internship that summer, I worked during the day, and I got hired on full time. I worked like a 4 to 12, so I got to be in the city at night. That was wonderful. A really phenomenal experience. And I went from Covenant House to pedophiles, arsonists, and other sex offenders who were developmentally disabled. And then I ran a battered woman shelter for a couple of years. And then I ran a parole program for a couple of years, a program that worked with adolescents who have mental health and behavioral health challenges. I then became a community resource person as a care manager with a hospital doing care for kids with behavioral and emotional challenges, mental health stuff, and then moved over into care management, and then finally community management. I was basically able to work in the community, finding resources for the families of the kids that we serve. So being a support staff to the other care managers. And then I started my own. All of those years of experience literally took me quite a few years, because when I finally started my own, that was 2006. Led me to where I started my first nonprofit, dissolved that when I moved to South Carolina, and now have another, actually 2, in the work that I do now with women and families.
Once again, a dynamic leader, as you can hear. Really 25 years of experience that God has taken her through. She went and she started that internship. It turned into a position, and then more doors started to open. Mm-hmm. And I love how she said she went and worked somewhere else, but she didn't put the application in. It was just that God was opening those doors for her. I love my guests because they always credit their source of where they know their help comes from.
Amen.
And we, here at Foster My Stories, we don't beat that over anyone's head, but we do give credit where our help comes from. So yes, being groomed to be her own SVU. SVU. I love how she was saying that if time and resources, was unlimited, she would love to spend more time with her family. And I understand that as well, because of what she does in the community that could be very demanding. Miss Kiwan, could you tell listeners, how has it been for you going on these different journeys? You see your sons growing up, your family been receptive to just how you blossom?
Mom of 3 sons, and all of my work has always been around, helping others, especially the younger kids. My baby boys are 16 and 18. With that, they've come up in a life of service. They're used to somebody probably living with us. They're used to, we're gathering up these things and, people are coming to the office to pick up food, or they're used to handing out food pantry, and that's their life. If we had to chronicle their community service, it's so infinite because that is their life. Brandon, my eldest, he was junior in high school when he brought me this young lady. That situation led me becoming a foster parent. I helped a friend of his. My other two younger boys, I have bonus sons now because of them. So I've been fostering officially and unofficially, usually because of my boys. They understand service. They understand that, regardless of our personal circumstances, when God calls us to do something for somebody else, that's what we have to do. When I worked at that group home, Brandon, when he turned 4 that summer, so that fall, he could not understand how come he had this great party with these kids. We had such a good time. We trick-or-treated. We had a party in the house. And then how come they got to go upstairs and go to bed in those bunk beds and he could not go upstairs and go to bed too? Why can't I just stay here and go to bed with everybody else? And I'm like, they live here. You don't live here. Now I run a transitional home and the boys are here. And it's like, okay, I know our home is far, but they would rather be here in Columbia serving and, being of help to whatever the ladies might need and being with their mom than being anywhere else. My grandkids, when they come here, they're like, Big Ma, can we come to Hannah House? And I'm like, can I just come visit you? And it's like, no, we want to come to Hannah House. So I'm like, okay. So my life of service has really just kind of meshed into with my life period. And so my family is aware and, embrace that. I mean, my husband literally is in the kitchen now cooking. And it's not just for Kiwan. I mean, it's for whomever likes to partake. And that's a whole nother show. How do you marry and date when your life is being on purpose and of service? And, so just making sure that you have a mate that understands that from the beginning. If they don't understand it, it's going to be problems later. Because women of faith, we always want a partner and we want somebody who's going to be able to work the vineyard with us. And if they don't get it, cannot work the vineyard with you, it's going to be a source of contention within the relationship, but it's also going to be a source of contention for your work because you're always going to feel pulled. So I thank God that I have a husband who can, whether it be, fixing a lady's window for her vehicle, numerous things he has to do around this big old building. So journey for me in my life's work, as you said in the question, if there were unlimited resources and time, I would love to be able to have more time with my family, some more time with my grandbabies, for them to know my heart, know who I am. They know I serve. Want them to spend more time so they can better understand why I serve.
Still beaming over here. You can't see me on this feed, but I'm beaming over here because just the impact that Ms. Kiwan has made carried over into her family. My last guest, Marcus Evans, seeing his parents and why he chose the path he did, and now hearing Kiwan and how, but from a mother's perspective, of how she's now done service, but that's also have rubbed really off on her children and her grandchildren. It's very dynamic to hear, and when you can hear it from that perspective, and then also to know that Ms. Kiwan served as a foster parent. So I say she's a super special guest because she's seen and knows everything from all corners of her field as a social worker, as a counselor, as a mentor, as a mother and grandmother, and also as a foster parent, and really knowing the whole total aspect of her journey. You were saying that going into the future, you would love to see more programs and more impact. Would you like to be, the one to create them? Or do you have some stuff in the works?
Oh, that's what you're asking me. Yeah, there's quite a few things in the work. One of my new projects is my Girls EmPOWERment Network. So we are working with pre and adolescent girls, helping them with a variety of things, from reproductive health and bodies to even getting our girls more tech savvy and all kinds of stuff. We're excited about Girls EmPOWERment Network, GEN as we call it. GEN is also a Girl Scout troop, so that's really exciting. We're going to be doing some things this year that's going to give us a greater impact and kind of really diversify and get us more out there. And so that's one of my projects. Something else that I'm slowly working on, my husband and I are chipping at the bits because God keeps sending us these boys. We'll be doing some things. There's that aging out population that you and I have had a conversation about many times before, but my heart for the 18 to 24 year olds who are not ready to really fully be on their own, but don't have enough resources, don't make enough money to fully live on their own, so they do still need support. Just going to be doing some stuff around issue and the needs of those young men, and I'm finding that just what I've seen with my boys, how necessary really is. And then with my company, company, really been able in all these years of doing nonprofit stuff to make some real shifts to social enterprise. Just because it's giving someone something doesn't mean that I can't make a profit. I've learned over the years, it took me 20 some odd years to get it, that social enterprise is what we need in order for us to continue to get. I can't give from nothing. I can't do the things in the programs that I need to do from nothing. It takes money. And so if I choose to continue to create these programs, I have to create business opportunities for myself that allows my family to be able to eat and not always have to be a client as well. Hello, somebody. With that, Journey Towards Purpose Global Institute is an LLC. It's not a nonprofit where I teach other servant leaders how to serve and give them a curriculum to work from. Not only do I help them with a curriculum to use, but I also help them to set up their businesses, nonprofits or LLC. And I've been serving clients from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, North Carolina, South Carolina, you name it. It's been really an interesting journey of helping folks to incorporate and set up their businesses properly, especially as far as nonprofits are concerned. And then once they're set up, I've been really doing a lot of courses, nonprofit leadership, fundraising, board development, going over bylaws and what they mean and how they are supposed to be set up and so on. And so all of those things are a part of my brand, a part of my services that I do under my company. And then I've added some other courses. I am now a 6-time book author. I'm teaching self-publishing and a few other courses that are going to be added on this year. But also as I add different products, t-shirt line, some accessories that all are about purpose. It's really just a matter of getting to the place where I'm going to naturally give. I understand that that's what God called me to do, to take care of, but I also know that He gave me my family too, and I need to be able to take care of them as well. And I want to be able to teach people how to take your gifts and the things that God gave you and how do you monetize them so that you're able to continue to do the work.
Everything Ms. Kiwan just said, I'm soaking it up as a sponge. Like she said, she authored several books. She has been a mentor to me as well because she knew me from a couple years back. I came to her and she helped me have book launch for my first book. She does dynamic stuff like that in the community. Her book, My Purpose Journal, My Journey Toward My Purpose, you can find that and other books by contacting Ms. Kiwan, J2P Global Institute.
On Facebook?
On Facebook.
And
yes.
You can do our PayHip, PAYHIP.com/J2P Global Institute. You can always find books and stuff on Amazon as well as on the PayHip site as well.
Excited to tell you listeners to please go support and go check out her information, especially for her institute. And she's also referred to passionately as Coach K as well. And you can contact her for her services and for mentorship as well, because it's needed, especially when you're trying to business strategies or get organization for your business. You don't always have, there's resources out here, but you don't always go to the right resources. Let's say it that way. A lot of times you may get the runaround, or you may not know about bylaws and why those are important. You may not even know who could be your board of directors if you're ready for that. Legalities of, why you can't have a business here 5 feet away from here. All those things you would have to know. I came to Ms. Kiwan a couple of years ago, and at the time I had so many ideas, but I was everywhere because I wasn't ready. And so now, as a grad student taking business courses, I'm now understanding the things that needs to go in place. A lot of times good to kind of have studies and some classes and really talk to some leaders like Ms. Kiwan in the community to kind of help you get organized. Absolutely. And I encourage that highly if you're entrepreneurs listening to get organized, find a mentor, and definitely reach out to Ms. Kiwan. Once again, your Facebook, LinkedIn as well, right?
Yes.
LinkedIn. And reach out and just show some love because you heard her on Foster My Stories. You heard about her dynamic service and what she does in the community. Also, she has this dynamic anthology. Can you tell listeners about that anthology?
Listen, anthology, I am the anthology queen. I am a part of 2 outside of my own, Diva Affirmations. I'm also a part of the nonprofit Legacy, which was the first time I had done something outside of this area in terms of books, which is really pretty dope. But I have 5 anthologies that I've done on my own. Confessions of a Welfare Mom, Confessions of a Welfare Mom Volume 2, Confessions of a Domestic Violence Survivor, Our Journey Towards Purpose, and I Speak, which is the latest one, published that last week, giving voice to the innocent bystanders of domestic violence. My goal with my books has always been to give women a voice, a platform to share their stories. It wasn't until my 4th one, Our Journey Towards Purpose, with 10 of us in there, I went to do some marketing and promotion around this book, and I literally had to go get my other books and take a minute. And when you look at these books, what do you see? You see the pictures of the women, right? At this point, Shalana, I have helped over 60 women become authors.
Wow. Gracefully Chosen listeners, I'm literally looking at all the women who have been impacted by her services. Yeah. Also, if you happen to be a playwright, Books to Stage.
Yeah, that's one of my books, Books to Stage. You can find the ebook for Books to Stage on Amazon. And that's if you want to take your novel or your book and turn it into a stage production.
I'm hoping, because she has those artistic talents as well, I'm hoping, but that's maybe if God leads, may lead her with short films one day. We'll see. I don't know.
I'm working on something.
See,
I'm working on something. See, I can't tell you everything. It's so funny because it was just earlier this week. He reached out. He was like, "Weren't we talking about doing this?" And I said, "Yeah." And so we went back and forth, and we throwing around some ideas around it. And then he said, "Thinking of it as stage or film?" And I said, "Film." And he was like, "I thought so." Coming, I promise.
I'm glad that was a confirmation. Listeners, if you definitely enjoyed listening to Ms. Kiwan's testimony as much as I've been honored to have really come see her.
Come check me out.
Come see her, or call her first.
Yes.
Call her first and check out her information. Listeners, thank you for your time here on Foster My Story. But before we go, Ms. Kiwan, is there any advice you would like to give listeners, whether they're wanting to potentially be a counselor or go into that field, or just any advice in general?
I would say God has already given you a purpose, and it's your job to figure out what it is. Don't go into anything that you have not been led into for a particular reason or season. Make sure that you are flushing it out. Make sure that you are connecting who you need to connect to. But make sure that you are seeking God and you are really intentional about where you're spending your time, energy, and money. There's no reason to go down a road of spending time for counseling and different things like that when you have another area that you really, really are passionate about. So, and if you're not sure what you want to do and how you want to do it, then get some help to figure that out. One of the things that I love about Journey Towards Purpose is that's what it's all about, figuring out that stuff so you don't waste any time. And it's not always waste time. It is your journey, but you don't spin your wheels where they don't need to be. Allow God to lead, but also make sure that you're using some good information. And I just want to thank you so much for this, an opportunity to share what I do and share all that I have going on. We didn't mention is that where my office is, I run a transitional house for women who are homeless and their families. Hannah House has been here for a little over 20 years, and we serve the homeless women population here in the Columbia, in the Midlands, and I get the pleasure of working with these ladies every day and to operate my community-based business along with this residential-based business is pretty dope. So
yes, if you're local here to the Midlands, you may have heard of Hannah House. They
downtown,
right across from the bus station, but this is a private area, so definitely you can't just come roll up here. You got to come, get permission. So if you contact Ms. Kiwan, just make sure it's okay first, child, or if you want to come donate.
Absolutely.
You can donate your, if you have some items you like to donate, some food, maybe some clothing, some resources, I'm pretty sure they would
give me a call.
Yes,
I'm sure.
Give her a call.
You can always use toilet paper.
Your time. Thank you so much again, Ms. Kiwan. And if you would like to be a featured, a community, or a special guest here on Foster My Stories, please inbox the Gracefully Chosen 2020 Facebook page. And you can also catch new content Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time via Red Circle Podcast, Audible, Spotify, Republic Radio, and Google Podcasts. And remember, being fostered, adopted, orphaned, and underserved simply means you're gracefully chosen. Take care.